We are back on stage, and it's such an honor now to have both Francis and Angeline on stage. This is our Q&A portion. And as we're settling in, the desserts are coming in. I wanted to just say that this is Q&A with the audience, so really it's your questions. And we actually have two mics. We have two mic runners. We got Allison and Raul in the back with mics. And so if you just raise your hand if you have a question, Allison and Raul will be with you shortly to hand you a mic. So now we'll just have the audience take it away. Questions especially for Francis and Angeline. Oh, we got a hand up there. Thank you, Raul.
Hi, Francis. Thank you so much for sharing your story and also your experiences. I was curious, as someone who is a mentor and also was a mentee, what is the best approach you would recommend to find a good fit? For example, if you're finding a mentor and vice versa, like how do you know someone is a good fit for where you are currently at?
It's a great question, and Angeline, you probably have some thoughts about that one too, right? When I think about mentor matches, I don't think we should think about like the obvious, like maybe demographic characteristics to find like a match. I think you need to think about like who is someone where you feel a connection to, where you feel like you can be open and honest. And what I appreciate about your story, Angeline, is you talked about how sometimes that takes a little bit of time, right? As you're starting to get comfortable with someone. But I think to me, it's like, do you feel like as a mentee that you can be vulnerable? Like, is it a safe space for you where you can be open and honest? I think as a mentor, a lot of the power that we can bring is in the questions we ask and how we set, kind of create a container for that vulnerability to come out. And so I think on that side, it's like, do you feel like you actually have something to add? Do you feel like as you start to learn more about your mentee, like, are there experiences that you can share? Are there commonalities where you can help to maybe unlock some of the ways in which your mentee might feel blocked? Right, and realizing their full potential. So those are some of the things that come to mind for me. I'm curious what you think, Angeline.
Okay, can you hear me? Wait, okay. So when it comes to mentor matches, as I said in my speech, it took me a while to be comfortable and be vulnerable with my mentors, because of course they're adults. But yeah, they're adults. So for me, with Clara and I and Anna Maria, we shared similar values with family, be responsible and trying to put your best effort in the things you do. And it's, yeah, if you have similar values, it's gonna work. But then as well, allow your mentors to have a different view so that you can be able to approach things differently instead of staying in the same mindset. So that was an issue of mine, is that I kept overthinking many things, but my mentors, as adults, they were able to settle me down, ground me, and that's a good thing if they're able to be there for you, and you as well being able to be there for them, to hear them out, and for them to do the same for you.
Thank you.
Oh yeah, I have a question probably mostly for Angeline. So actually my mentee from over 10 years ago ended up going to Berkeley. Her name was Vanessa. She ended up going to Berkeley and also majoring in environmental science. But just this background, but my question is about your experience kind of connecting with your mentors and your community, other mentees during COVID. I mean, it's looking back a little bit, but also in light of the fact that there's going to be Minds Matter Bay Area, there'll be local communities, but people will also be distributed a little bit about. How was your experience kind of connecting, building relationships with your mentors, your mentees, your pod leaders and so forth during COVID remotely?
For me, I think it might be like kind of like a unpopular opinion, but I was able to do well through remote. Being in person was good, but remote I was able to look forward to going to Minds Matter, especially on Saturdays, and I was able to meet several mentees as well. Especially there was another mentee that made it into UC Berkeley, so I saw her a couple of weeks ago, And so going through remote, it was difficult. It was a little bit strange going through like Saturdays, waking up at 10 in the morning and going to sessions. But you do build that community because everybody wants to see each other again. And as well, like through Zoom, the pod leaders tried their best to give activities, give discussions, and that helped me and Clara and with other mentees collaborate with each other, try to give effective responses. And overall, I maintained some connections with some mentees, and yeah, overall it's just, if you're separate and you realize that you were in a community, you try to reach out because you realize that that community was important to you. So, yeah.
Coming your way, Betty.
Hi. What does it take to become a mentee? You've got a lot of people in the room here donating money, bidding on things, but how can they personally, or we personally, be involved or get other people involved who have the capability to mentor?
If I can take that one, that's an amazing question, Betty. So raise your hand, Adam, Karena, we got people in the house, Janice. These are our volunteer leaders that oversee, and Naharika, of course, that oversee the process to recruiting, cultivating, and selecting for volunteers that come into our organization. First of all, Betty, you're on our mind already, so the minute we see your application come in, we will get you in. We're very, very excited and always looking for, certainly it's amazing to get donors. I think one of the things you'll learn, there are many, sort of instructors and mentors and volunteers that are sitting at your tables. And I think one of the things they'll tell you is that volunteering in our organization only deepens your depth of understanding of what this impact really is. So we highly recommend it. We hope for it. We're excited to get your applications. There is an interview process, as there should be, because we are, of course, trying to be very thoughtful about, how we really match not just volunteers to mentees, because some volunteers come in and they're instructors or they're pod leaders, they do different roles, but we want to make sure it's really matched to your interests, your strengths, as well as, of course, to the people that you're working with. So we'll be really thoughtful in that process, but we are always, always looking for our donors to continue and deepen their support as volunteers in our organization as well. Please send your applications to join at mindsmatterbay.org. Join at mindsmatterbay.org. Is that correct? Am I right? Okay, perfect. Or AB, if you want to join our associate board, AB at Mindsmatter, join AB at mindsmatterbay.org as well. We'll be sending this info after tonight's event,
Give an estimate, like what are you looking for number of hours per week or month?
Wow, this one really varies. This one really varies. I would say that if you're looking for something that's a weekly commitment of 3-4 hours, that would be mentorship, instruction, those types of roles. But if you're looking for something that is more of a, maybe a 10-hour commitment, 5 to 10-hour commitment throughout the course of a month, you might be looking at roles like college admissions, support, personal statement workshop is more seasonal, right? That happens in the fall semester of senior year, where you get to review and work with individual students on their college essays. We also, of course, have an associate board that is really focused on helping us build partnerships and also continue to fundraise for the organization. That's more of a monthly commitment as well.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Great question. And we'll be looking for your application. We have a gentleman over here there you go. Raul's got you.
Yeah, well, it's really inspiring to see what Minds Matter has done over so many years, and it's congratulations on expanding it to a much wider area of impact. The question I have is, once the students get through into college, 100% admission to college is fantastic. It's a very enviable record. What happens post that, and what is Minds Matter's involvement in getting them into the next stage of their career?
Minds Matter is a network and a family for our students for life, and I think we do that in a number of ways. I'll name 2 of them here. One is actually very, very organic because of the way that we've structured our program. Our mentors work with our students every week for 3 years. That's a really profound connection that you build with a student over time. Someone like Clara, I think Clara and Angeline are friends for life, is that right? Do you have bracelets yet?
Not
Okay.
yet, but hopefully.
All right, we're gonna get those necklaces and bracelets made. But this is just one of many, many examples, right, Angeline and Clara, of the deep connection that builds over these years, and it continues. Every year we have a student alumni on stage speaking to the power of that relationship. And we've had alumni come through that are, not just in college, but past college. They've graduated, they're, in their first jobs and their second jobs, and still they're connected to the mentors that supported them when they were in this program. I think what's beautiful too is that you really get to grow together on that journey. So especially as they continue to evolve, in a way, their paths, what I loved about what Angeline said earlier is about your values matching, right? I think that what's really interesting is as you get older and you grow together, you also find some of the things that you're going through start to converge more and more, right? Because 5 years, 7 years apart feels really, really different when you're 15. But when you're 25, that gap starts to close. And so that journey continues. So that's one thing. The second thing is that we continue to stay in touch. We have a team led by Corinna Bowl and Joy Sim, right, who is really, really keen on making sure that we are connecting to our alumni community. That's across the 203 students that we've served. We check in with them on a regular basis. We ask them what it is that they're looking for. We offer career networking opportunities. Anytime, we actually have a lot of incredible corporate supporters in our community that are interested in offering things like internships, things like workshops, seminars, just career exposure opportunities, and we always get those out to our students. We also continue to offer to connect them with folks. Sometimes they'll reach out and they'll say, or we'll reach out to them, and in that conversation they'll say, at this moment in my life, obviously career is really important, but I'm actually going through a career transition, and I'd like to talk to somebody who, I've been a product manager for a couple of years, and I'm thinking about, making a transition to, finance world, something different, and we have lots of people that we can connect them with to have that conversation as well. So those are two ways that we stay connected.
Question for Francis. What is some advice you would have for someone who's a minority, whether it be in the workplace or elsewhere, to firstly be comfortable with the discomfort of being in a room where no one else looks like you, and secondly, start to advocate for more diversity so that is no longer the case?
The first thing I'd share is I think diversity and our difference is our superpower. And I think the first thing that we should try to find ways, if we're finding that we're one of the few, one of the only in the room, is to try to shift that dynamic from it being an isolating and marginalizing position to the fact that you likely have a perspective that no one else in that room can bring, right? And in this time where we're all searching for the best ideas, we're all searching for new ways forward as we deal with greater levels of complexity, right? That is your superpower, right? And so for me, I think the more that I embrace my Latinidad, the more that I embrace the fact that, guess what? I come from strivers who did courageous things so that I could be here, right? And I bring all of that to fuel me forward, right? I'm kind of like, I'm doing okay, right? That said, there are many rooms that are not hospitable to me. And it's in those moments that you have to stand in your values. You have to know that you belong there, right? That you have the skills that you've been preparing, right? To be in those rooms when it gets hard. When it gets hard. And that's when the mentors, the coaches, and the others you have around you are also the people who can help fortify you in those hard moments. What I would say, though, in terms of how do you make the case for increasing diversity, I have found that, unfortunately, I think in a lot of workplace settings, the moral imperative doesn't work, sadly. I can share my feelings on that on another point. And so what I have found is, like, how do you make the case for diversity in a strategic way where it helps to highlight the fact that it is a driver of of business goals and business cases, right? So I shared, like for us in our work, like having diversity, right, is a way to fuel innovation, is a way to drive more sustainable change. Think about in your context, what is the power of diversity, and how can that help to drive what would be the business goals? Think about who you need to influence, think about what motivates them, and then think about how you make that case. Unfortunately, because like I said, I don't think the moral imperative right now is always resonating. But I believe the evidence base on diversity is quite strong, and it's just more about kind of sometimes making that data, making that case more accessible and understandable.
Thank you. I'm one of, I think, several lawyers in the room, and so I'm curious from anybody on the stage, are there ways that you envision legal service providers can leverage our particular skills to advance some of the goals that have been talked about tonight? Sorry.
No, I think when you think about, so like one of the things that we do at NewSchools, like I said, is we're helping to fund early stage, basically startup nonprofit organizations. And when you're in those earliest stages, you do not have the resources to invest in getting access to legal counsel. And a lot of times, the folks who are starting new organizations are oftentimes strong content experts. Like they might understand education, they might understand pedagogy, they might understand curriculum or leadership development, but have no idea about some of the broader organization building skills that you need to kind of create an organization that can exist over the long term. And I view legal questions as being a key part of that. So a lot of our folks wind up getting themselves in situations where they don't know how to think about their legal needs. They don't know how to think about risk management. They don't know how to get advice that they need as they're plotting their next steps. Even simple things of like, how do I incorporate? Should I be a nonprofit? Should I be a for-profit? Should I be a B Corp? There are so many services that you can provide, and the question is like, is there a way in which you can provide them in a pro bono way, in a low bono way, to make this much more accessible? Because we actually were dealing with some issues a few days ago, and it was like, wow, if they had access to legalize, a lot of these issues would have been mitigated, right? So are there ways in which you can extend those services so that more people can focus on the core of their mission, impact-oriented work?
I'm so glad you said that, Frances, because one of the unsung heroes in our room tonight, Minds Matter, San Francisco, now Bay Area, and in fact, in our move to be Bay Area, there was a lot of legal work involved. We've worked closely with Cooley and specifically Sam Drix and Sai Yaramala. If you guys can just wave in the room, if that's okay. Thank you so much. Your partnership has meant so much to our organization, and Frances, as you said, so many other organizations that are starting out. Actually, your team, so Garth Osterman was sort of the original partner currently at Cooley, who worked with us 12 years ago when we started this chapter and has brought us with him as part of his portfolio everywhere. We continue to be a pro bono partner. And so just thank you guys, and to your question, it has meant everything to us to have that kind of support, so yeah.
How can we lawyers help you and the organizations up here?
Oh, so I think it can bring on a lot of real world experiences, but also things that many teenagers may not know what is going on. So for example, I had my civics class in my senior year, and there were many things that we didn't know or understand. And so our civics teacher kept on telling us many things and how sometimes students wouldn't listen and they would get in trouble with the law. And so it would be important for students to know what they're doing, and as well to help programs. And yeah, it will just bring in a different perspective for students that you can do things, but there's also limits to doing things in the legal system though. But yes, it's bringing in a different perspective. And yes, our mentees have come from different jobs, and so they bring in different views for us, and so it's just rounding our views a lot more.
Angeline wants to know where all the red tape is in the system, right? Okay. Thank you.
Irene, we have time for one last question.
Thank you, Beth. Got it. One last question, guys. Last paddle. No. Right here, Hattie, please. Take one.
Really curious to hear about, how you guys think about technology in education, because, some people think that having technology will modernize, standardize, and really give access to create more parity. Well, I feel like maybe Angeline resonated on this point. Not everything could be remote, so kind of thinking about where we could really help access at scale versus where we should still stay personalized and making sure there's organic interactions between mentors and mentees. And I think that we'd love to hear the perspectives from all of you.
I was too ambitious in thinking I could reach that far. That's a great question, Hattie, and that'd be really awesome. I actually used to work with an organization called the Achievement Network, or ANET, back in the Stone Age, and we were out in Boston. And I think one of the really interesting things that I loved about that organization was, yes, we had a technological platform, we had tools. What we were really trying to do as an organization was help schools and teachers specifically understand what was coming up on the, state test for students and be able to prepare them properly for it. And we gave them a suite of technological tools to do that. But really what we paired it with that I really believed in was actually service. We worked with those schools. We worked with teachers. So I had the incredible opportunity to work with principals, with teacher leaders at these schools to really think about, like, how does this tool actually work for you? Right? Because I think that there can be sometimes, and I don't want to say this is always the case, but sometimes there can be this sense that the tool itself is the answer. And I don't really think that's the case. People have problems that they're trying to find solutions for. And when you come to the table with the solution, I think you have to first really understand, like, what is this a solution for? Who is this a good fit for? And I think you should also be on the ground helping people to implement those solutions, to understand what parts of those technological solutions are useful, what is not, how does that feed back into the way you continue to iterate that tool. It's not different from how we think about products, I think, in a lot of spaces. What I just think is really interesting is that what I've seen in the education space is there's sometimes this sort of like helicopter drop of a tool or a platform, and it's just like, hey, this is great, figure it out. And it's like, that's not really how that works. Like anything else, we have to learn how to integrate solutions into our daily lives. And teachers, schools, administrators, district leaders, they're no different. So that's my perspective, Francis.
I 100% agree with you. And what I would add to what you've already shared is, one, I think what we found out during the pandemic is that there's no replacement to educators, and that technology can supplement the experience but can't supplant the role of educators, and that there's still power that comes through relationships that we're building with teachers, with others in the school building. The other thing I would say is I think we also saw just the technology gaps that exist and the access divides. And what I think one of the silver linings is just the efforts that were made to both radically expand access to devices and to Wi-Fi so that many more people can be connected and being connected in a way where they could truly access the power of the full internet, the power of different tools and platforms, as you were talking about. And so I do think that, to me, is like, how do we continue to make sure that there is access? How do we think about Wi-Fi as a utility as opposed to something that only folks can access if you have the means to do so? Because another thing that we saw, particularly for high school students, was that one of the benefits of being at home remotely was that you had much more access to kind of finding courses in different ways to expand your horizons, to actually pursue your passions, to pursue your interests, and not just be limited to what your school may or may not have been offering. But a lot of that also required young people to have access to mentors and guides who can help them to navigate those different opportunities. And so I think the question is, yes, technology can be a force for good if we make sure we're doing it in a way where everyone has access to it and that it's not just another way of replicating the inequities that exist in our system. And so I both see the power and I see the limitations of it, and still believe that we need to be building deep relationships with, between young people and adults, given all that we've been talking about here and the benefits of community.
I do agree with there being limits to technology. I feel like there are advantages that you can take with technology, but overall it depends how you really use it. For me, I had my junior year and partially sophomore year over Zoom, and at first it was very difficult, but in turn it allowed me to find opportunities. I think I did a Coursera course with Minds Matter, and that helped me understand, study how to learn. But as well, as I said earlier, it depends how you use your resources and what you take out most of it. So it kind of falls in line with you get out with what you put in. And so there are limits, and it just depends how you use the things. And I do agree that there should be equity within the technologies that we have, because some people will have it and some people won't have the things that they need, and so it just leaves a gap within the education of students. And so we must see how can we help the other students here, how can we help this other group of students here, so that they can be able to kind of be at the same level with both or as many groups being able to understand how they can learn and take advantage of opportunities.
Well said. Thank you. We are at the end of our evening, and actually, we've thank you for being such an amazing audience. By the way, earlier, my event planner Beth was like, "We might lose people, but you guys all stayed. Thank you so much. Love it." But we will close here. If there's one thing that we hope you'll walk away with, it's to continue your journey with Minds Matter Bay Area. Please continue your journey. There's so many ways to continue to be involved, and we welcome all of them, any and all of them. Do check out mindsmatterbay.org and our social media handles at Minds Matter Bay. Those should be up and running. Post about us, talk about us, and continue to stay with us. This is a family, this is a community. And for those that need it, this is a church as well. That's it. Thank you all. Have a great evening. Thank you, Francis. Thank you, Angeline.